Hello and welcome to episode number 2 of First Down Focus. I am your host, Darrien Mogel, and we got a lot to talk about today. Today we're going to focus a lot more on college football, but we're going to be talking a little bit about NFL as well, rebuilding a team. If I was the GM of a team, how am I going to approach this next season to get into the playoffs? Every team we do of this series is all going to be non-playoff teams. To start us off, we're going to talk a little about the Eagles parade. Last episode was posted on Saturday, and I recorded that back on Wednesday or Thursday. So I did not get to talk at all about the Eagles parade, but I was there. It was absolutely insane. People climbing light poles, climbing statues, a lot of drunk people. But pretty much I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, started driving down there around 5, got there at 6:15, walked about 45 minutes from where I parked to the art museum, and then it was just electric. I wanted to be there to see the players. We got like second row, so just about right up against the fence. And my fiance got a lot of cool videos of guys dancing as they were walking by. I got up close videos of Dallas Goedert dancing. I got Jalen Carter walking by, Nick Sirianni high-fiving us. To me, the most electric player, though, out of all of them was Braden Mann. Braden Mann, the punter for the Eagles. He came over to us. He started dancing, chugged a Miller Lite, tossed a Miller Lite into the crowd. He started running up and down. Like he was the most electric in my opinion, but obviously guys started gassing out a little bit throughout the parade. I saw some guys early on were high-fiving fans and then went back on the bus because it was a lot for them. Overall, it was just an awesome experience. I wouldn't change a thing. Very cold outside, but it was just absolutely electric to be there. So for the podcast today, also, I appreciate everyone tuning in for episode number 1 of the podcast. If you are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, like this video, comment, let me know who your favorite team is, and if you want me to talk more about that team throughout the other podcasts. But let's get into our first topic. Today, I'm going to be talking about a lot of college football, but also NFL as well. And this one's a little bit of both. We're talking about my top 10 draft projections heading into this draft coming up. Obviously, Combine did not happen yet. So my draft order is probably going to change after the rankings come out and after stuff happens in the Combine. Hopefully no one gets injured, but performances matter. Some guys will rise, some guys will fall. But I got my top 10 here, and I'm going to just say my top 10 guys, then I'm going to explain it after the fact because I don't want to go through and explain each single pick individually, but I will do that towards the end. So number 1, the Titans. To me, they need a quarterback. Will Levis is not the answer. He has showed little to no promise in the NFL so far in his early part of his career. So give me Cam Ward. To me, he's the best quarterback by a mile in this draft. I think there's a large gap between him and Shedeur Sanders, and there's even a larger gap between the other quarterbacks in this draft than after that. So give me Cam Ward, number 1 overall, going to the Tennessee Titans, quarterback out of Miami. Then, second pick, a little bit of controversy here. I think the Browns are going to take Abdul Carter, edge rusher out of Penn State. I was about to explain it, but I'll wait till the end, till I go through all these picks. Number 3, I got Travis Hunter going to the New York Giants, cornerback / wide receiver. I think he's going to be more of a corner in the NFL. Some people think he's going to be more of a wide receiver, but I see him filling in more as a corner and then added in there in certain plays, certain trick plays, or just lining up at wide receiver a few of the plays on the Giants offense. Then, number 4, I got Mason Graham to the Patriots, defensive tackle. Number 5, I have Will Johnson, cornerback, going to Jacksonville with the Jaguars in Duval. Number 6, this is where I have Shedeur Sanders falling to, and I see the Raiders snagging him at the number 6 spot. I don't think they expect him to fall this far, but once he does fall this far, they're going to have to snag him at the number 6 spot. Number 7, I got Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks, he can play tackle or guard, but he's mainly a tackle out of Texas, going to the New York Jets. Number 8, I have Mykel Williams going to the Panthers, edge rusher from Georgia. Mykel Williams going to the Panthers at this 8 spot. Number 9, this one I bounced back and forth between 2 players, but I believe that Ashton Jeanty is going to go to the Saints here at pick number 9. They're going to snag him right before a few other teams that want him. Few teams behind the Saints, I believe, are going to try to get him, but they're going to be disappointed when the Saints take him at number 9. And then number 10, I got Will Compton, tackle out of LSU, going to the Chicago Bears. So to recap, I got Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Mason Graham, Will Johnson, Shedeur Sanders, Kelvin Banks, Mykel Williams, Ashton Jeanty, and Will Compton in that order. So first things first, I'm going to go over each one of these picks. Not really each one. I think Cam Ward is self-explanatory. A couple other guys are self-explanatory. But biggest takes, I got Browns taking Carter because I believe Myles Garrett's going to get traded. As an Eagles fan, I want him to go to Philly, but I don't believe he's going to go there. I don't know where he's going to go, but I think they're going to get a good package for Myles Garrett. He's been the face of your franchise for the last 5 to 7 years. So I believe they're going to take a guy to try to replace him. And Abdul Carter to me is the best overall player in this draft. I think Travis Hunter's pretty close to him, but Abdul Carter to me is the best overall player by far. And I think that they are going to draft him to replace a guy like Myles Garrett. And then maybe later on they take a quarterback, early second round. There's a few guys. But I just think there's too much behind Sanders that they're going to pass on him. Because I think they can get a guy like Shedeur Sanders has always been coached by his dad. Obviously, he had him in high school, but in college, his entire college career is coached by his dad. It's going to be a transition going from always being coached by your dad to an NFL coach then. And to me, I think there's too much risk, and the Browns want to make sure they pick the right guy. And I think they've had so much draft history of bad picks that when you see Abdul Carter sitting there at the second overall pick, I feel like you have to take him. He's the best player in the draft. And if you trade with Myles Garrett, you need someone that's going to be the face of your franchise after Myles Garrett. And I think Abdul Carter can be that guy. So I have Sanders dropping. I also have the Giants passing on Sanders because I believe the Giants are going to wait till next year. I think they can get a guy like Arch Manning in the draft. But if you get a guy like Travis Hunter to pair with Malik Neighbors, Malik Neighbors got hurt a couple times last year, and I think that was because they targeted him so much. He's a rookie in the NFL. Guys were teeing off on him. He wasn't used to having that much. Obviously, in college, he had a lot of attention on him, but it's college football. The NFL, the Giants were so bad that if you took away Malik Neighbors, they weren't doing anything. So guys were teeing off on him. These guys are bigger, faster, stronger, and he had a concussion. He had a little bit of issues throughout the season. So I think if you take a guy like Travis Hunter to put on the defense side and also take some pressure off Neighbors on the offensive side, obviously you still don't have a quarterback. You can possibly take a quarterback later on in this draft, but I think they wait and they might sign someone to a 1-year deal in free agency or deal with whoever they got at quarterback because I don't even know who the hell their starting quarterback is going to be this year. And I think they try to target Arch Manning and have another Manning as the face of your franchise in next year's draft. So to me, they're taking Travis Hunter at this number 3 spot, the best player available at the time. And then I think Mason Grant's self-explanatory. Will Johnson, they need cornerback. Their whole defense needs help, and I think Will Johnson will be the best player for them to take. And then Shedeur Sanders. To me, this is going to be a tricky one because I think the Raiders are going to go out there and sign a quarterback in free agency. I don't know if it's going to be a guy like Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if it's going to be a guy like Sam Darnold. But I think they go out there, sign a guy, and then they have this problem where they expect Sanders to get drafted by either the Titans, Browns, or Giants, and then he doesn't. So then you have him sitting there at pick number 6. I think you take him at pick 6, and I think if it's someone like Sam Darnold, he might be able to compete for a starting spot. Someone like Aaron Rodgers, you might want to let Sanders sit behind Rodgers, learn from. I know Rodgers isn't historically known as the guy to teach his backup. He said it before that it's not his job to teach his backup. So it might be a little bit more tricky, but I think if you have a guy like Rodgers in there, if you sign him and have Sanders sit behind him, and if something goes wrong with Rodgers because he's old, he might not be playing as well. You might be able to plug him in then midway through the season. That might not make him happy, but I don't see how the Raiders can pass up on Sanders at the number 6 spot when you're desperate for a franchise quarterback. So I see him going there at number 6, and the Jets taking Kelvin Banks. I think there's a lot of different options the Jets can take here, but to me, it just short that offensive line, and then you're going to need a quarterback eventually. But I don't think this is the spot to take a quarterback. So Kelvin Banks at number 7 going to the Jets. Michael Williams, Panthers need some help on that defensive line. So I see him going right there to the Panthers. Then this is my tricky one. I have had a number of guys I wanted to put here, but to me, the way the Saints are set up, cap space wise, and they're going to need to make some moves, I can see them making a big move, taking Genti at number 9 for Kamara's replacement, Alvin Kamara. And then I can see them using Kamara as trade bait. They got their guy, younger guy, probably around the same skill set as Alvin Kamara, but then use a 30-year-old running back and use some of those picks that you have in this draft. See if you can get in there in the late either late first round or see if you can put some package together. I like the 12th pick with Dallas because Dallas, I think, wants Ashton Genty because they need running back help. But if you take him at 9 and then send some sort of trade with Kamara, early second round pick, and maybe even like a fourth or fifth or something with next year's draft, see if you can get the number 12 pick because the other guy I was debating on is also take Taysom Hill's replacement in Tyler Warren. If you can somehow get Ashton Genty at 9 and then put some package together with Kamara, a second round pick, and whatever other draft picks you got to add in there to get the number 12 overall pick, see if you can get Genty for Kamara's replacement and Tyler Warren at number 12 for Taysom Hill's replacement. Because to me, Tyler Warren and Taysom Hill are pretty similar in player. They both can throw the football. Obviously, Tyler Warren's not as much of a quarterback like Taysom Hill is, but they can both run the football. They can both catch the ball in the backfield. They can catch the ball at tight end. But to me, they're both so versatile that if he can learn from Taysom Hill, and Taysom Hill, is 35, 36 years old, he's going to be done soon. I think he got, a year or two in his contract. He signed a massive contract, but you can't, no one's going to be able to take him at the amount of money he's making. Like, no one besides the Saints would pay him that amount of money. You kind of stuck with him, but if you draft someone like Genty and then try to trade Kamara and a package of picks and try to get a guy like Tyler Warren, then at least you're setting yourself up for a solid future then. And then after that, I got Will Compton at number 10. I'm going to go over that later because that's going to lead us into our next segment. My next segment is going to be about the Chicago Bears. This is going to be a segment that I want to do multiple times throughout the next few weeks, but it's going to run short because obviously the free agency is going to pass. So I'm not going to be able to talk about free agency anymore. The draft is going to pass. I'm not going to be able to talk about that anymore. But to me, the Bears are a team that we can rebuild. Like, if I was the GM, these are the players I would target. And this is what I would do in free agency, the draft, to improve our team and become a playoff team. The Bears are a team that if you make the right moves, they can be one of those Washington Commanders type of teams where you had a bad season, nailed the draft, and made a run at least to the conference championship game and be a title contender. So to me, the Bears, obviously they were 5-12 last year. They have, for draft-wise, they have the 10th pick. Then they have 2 early picks in the second round. So they have 3 of the top 41 picks. They have $64 million in cap space. And then you look at where their biggest holes were. You had the 24th ranked O-line. Passing defense was actually pretty good for Chicago, but in terms of rushing yards allowed, they were 28th in the league. So I think that when you look at that, you got to focus on your O-line. They let up the most sacks. So you had 24th ranked O-line. Shore that up. Protect your franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, first overall pick. He has a lot of potential. He showed it this year, and he's going to continue to show that year in and year out. He has weapons on the outside. You have DJ Moore. You have Roma Dunze. You have a guy in the backfield of DeAndre Swift. You have tight end Cole Kmet. So you have the weapons around Williams. Now you got to protect him. Give him time to throw the football. Give him time to read a defense. Let him scramble a little bit from time to time, but protect your guy. He's your franchise guy. You want him for the next 8 to 10 years. Protect him. So to me, if I'm the Chicago Bears, this is what I'm doing. Free agency, I'm going out, and there's 2 guys I want to target, and there's a third guy that's just a bonus guy. If you can get him with the amount of money you have left over, he wouldn't be a bad guy to have, but you want to keep a little bit of cap space available for the next season. So number 1 guy you got to target is Trey Smith, guard out of Kansas City. He's used to winning. You're going to bring in that attitude of a winner, someone that can be a leader in the locker room right off the bat. And I would throw dollar signs at him right away, sure up that guard position. And you got to go get Drew Dahlman, center out of Atlanta. These 2 guys, you'd shore up your center position, you'd shore up your guard position, and then a bonus guy that I want to see on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know if they're going to have enough money for him. Milton Williams, I think, would fit good on Chicago's defense. He can be a run stopper. He can rush the passer as a defensive tackle, big guy. So Milton Williams will be a bonus, but really you got to focus on Trey Smith. I think he's your number 1 target. Get him in your locker room. And then a guy like Drew Dahlman, get a solid center that can command that offensive line. So you get those 2 guys in. Then in the draft, 2 of your first 3 picks have to be linemen. I'm going at pick number 10. I already said it in my my draft projections, I like Will Compton. Will Compton, I think, would be a solid left tackle for them. Put him at left tackle. And if you can get a guy like Kelvin Banks, I wouldn't mind it, but I think he's going to go a little bit earlier than Will Compton. But either one of those guys, Will Compton or Kelvin Banks, I think would fit really well in this offensive line. And Kelvin Banks is very versatile. You can put him at guard or tackle, but I think he's going to be mainly a tackle in the NFL. So at number 10, you got to get one of those two guys. You cannot waste this top 10 pick on a position that you're not going to need. Go out and protect your quarterback. Sign guys in free agency and go draft guys in the draft. That will protect your quarterback. He's your franchise guy. He's going to make you the most money as a business owner. Go and protect him. And then they also have pick 39 and pick 41. These picks, I pick 39. If this guy's available here, I think you got to take him. Defensive tackle Alfred Collins, but I think he's going to go at the end of the first round. I project him to be between like 20 and 25. But if somehow he drops in this draft, I would go out there and I would take a guy like Alfred Collins at defensive tackle. But if he's not available, you have two very close picks in 39 and 41. That is, I'm okay with going with either one first. One guy I like to shore up the other side of the center at guard is Donovan Jackson, guard out of Ohio State. I think he would also fit really well on offense. And then whatever your other pick is, whether it's 39 or 41, I think you take defensive tackle Keon Walker if Alfred Collins is not available. And Keon Walker to me is the more realistic pick. Alfred Collins is just praying that he drops to you. Walker, he's a guy that will actually probably be available at that time of the draft. So I'm going out there. I'm signing a guy like Trey Smith, signing a guy like Drew Dahlman. Your top two targets should be those two right there in free agency. Then in the draft, shore up your left tackle of Will Compton, maybe Kelvin Banks too, but I would target Will Compton. And then Donovan Jackson to cover the other guard position. And then with that other pick in the first round you have, I would go after someone like Keon Walker, or a big guy who can stop the run and help your rushing defense. I wouldn't be worried too much about your secondary. You have weapons. If you want to add a third receiver in the draft later on, that I think that would be perfectly fine. Maybe the fourth or fifth round. If you want to take a wide receiver to get that third spot filled, that is perfectly fine. But really, your offensive defensive line, you saw with the Eagles, they won that game in the trenches. Their offensive line was dominant. Their defensive line was more than dominant. And they won that Super Bowl based on their offensive and defensive line, and they just completely dominated. So if I'm the Bears, you have the weapons, you have the quarterback, you have a decent secondary. I'm targeting my offensive line, protect my moneymaker and Caleb Williams, and then try to stop the run with the big guy at nose tackle, D tackle Keon Walker. If Alfred Collins is available, take him. All three of your picks should be linemen, but two on the offensive side and one on the defensive side. Keep in mind, the Bears last season were 2-6 in one-score games. If you can just flip that, give your guy time to throw the football, that 2-6 can turn into 6-2 in one-score games. Now, instead of 5-12, you're sitting at 9-8. And that's not yet in the playoffs, but you're at least knocking on the door and giving yourself more of an advantage and at least be playing for something down the stretch and not just a high draft pick. And I really like the hiring of Ben Johnson. I think he's going to he leaves Detroit bringing in a lot of heart to the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears have had some horrendous seasons over the last decade. And I think Ben Johnson leaving Detroit and coming here, you have the offensive weapons. Obviously, he built an insane offense in Detroit. He's going to bring that style of play they had on offense. And Detroit had arguably the best offense in the entire NFL all season up until you got into the playoffs. But I think he's going to have this Bears offense rolling. That line that he had in Detroit, it helped them be the best offense. It helped their rushing attack. It helped Jared Goff sit back there and deliver the football to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams and Sam Laporta. So when you bring over Ben Johnson, I think he understands that you have to build an offensive line to be able to let your quarterback sit back there and deliver the football to the weapons that you acquire. So I fully expect him to build that offensive line, build that defensive line. And if they can get this done, if they can bring in 4 new offensive linemen and 2 new defensive linemen, this team I think their ceiling would be like an 11-6. But 11-6 would be good enough to at least get them a wild card spot. That division's tough, so I don't know if that would win them the division. But I can see them splitting with Detroit. I could see them splitting with Green Bay. And I could see them sweeping Minnesota. Minnesota, I think, is going to take a step back this year. They're not going to be a 14-win team. They might be a decent team. They're not going to be a 14-win team, though. But that division is going to be tough. And their floor, if they get the offensive line, I think their floor would probably be 7-10. So I really see them between 7-10 and 11-6. But if they can get their offensive line and defensive line figured out, they had the second best red zone defense. They let teams rush down there, get in the red zone, but then they stopped them once they got in the red zone. So I'm not really worried about the red zone defense so much. It's really stopping the run on defense and then offense protecting your guy. You do that. If I'm a Chicago Bears fan and I see who we draft this year and it's offensive lineman, I'm happy for that. So really, if I'm the GM, this is everything that I would do to improve the Chicago Bears. Every single week, we're going to do a different team, and it's all going to be non-playoff teams. I don't want to pick playoff teams because really all I got to say is, all right, do the same exact thing you did last year, and you'll be back in the playoffs. I want to pick teams that are really in the top 10 of this draft, top 15 of this draft, and try to develop them and give them free agent targets to go out there and try to acquire to improve their team and possibly make the playoffs and a Super Bowl run. That's all I got for the Chicago Bears. Going on to segment number 3, we're going to trend toward college football now. I'm going to give my way too early top 10. This is really what I think the AP top 10 is going to look like when that does come out closer to the beginning of the season. I have 3 teams just outside of top 10. Then I'm going to rank these in tiers. The teams to beat, the teams that can make a run for a national championship, and then teams that they need a flawless season if they want to compete for a title. And there's not a lot of teams I have here. When it comes to college football, there's really like that solid like 5 teams you think could win it. There's probably 1 or 2 teams you think are like, all right, they're probably going to win it. And then there might be 3 Cinderella teams that you might be rooting for to win it, but deep down you know that they can't compete with the best of the best. So starting off, my way too early, top 10 college football AP poll rankings. Number 1, I got Ohio State. Ohio State national championship team. You got one of the probably the best wide receiver in the entire NFL, college football. So when you have your quarterback coming back and you have the best wide receiver in all of college football, you're going to be at number 1, especially after coming off a national championship title. Number 2 and number 3, I was pretty close of changing these two. I did actually have number 3 at number 2 at one point, but I changed it back. I have Texas at number 2. I think Arch Manning is better than Quinn Ewers. I think he should have been playing all last season, but I had them at the number 2 position. And then number 3, I do have Penn State. Penn State is a team that they have a lot of guys returning, but they're tricky because they lost their best player in defense in Abdul Carter, and they lost arguably their best player on offense in Tyler Warren. So when you lose your best player in defense and possibly your best player on offense, it's going to be tough to bounce back. But I do think they have enough returning on the offensive defensive line, and you have the best running back in all of college football coming back as well. So Penn State I do have sitting there at number 3 position. Then at number 4, they don't have a lot of flashy players, but they just rake in 5-star recruits, 4 and 5-star recruits every single year, and they hit the transfer portal. So I have Georgia sitting at number 4. I definitely think they're going to be another competitive year from Georgia. They came off an SEC championship last year. So Georgia I have sitting at number 4. Number 5 I put there because I feel like they have to be here. I don't believe they are a top 5 team. I think they had a really good season last year, but I do see them trending down or back, however you want to say it. I have Oregon sitting at number 5. Oregon I do not believe is going to win the Big Ten again this year. I think they're going to suffer some key losses during the season. I think they're going to drop down these rankings early on. But right now, they're going 13-0, but getting absolutely blown out by Ohio State. You still won 13-0. You were still the number 1 seed in the playoff. So I had them sitting at number 5 for now. Number 6, no bias whatsoever. I got Clemson sitting at number 6. A lot of guys returning. I believe they can put together a really good season. And Cade Klubnik to me is the real – I know a lot of people don't believe in Cade Klubnik, but coming back for another year under Dabo Swinney, I believe Clemson's going to make another run at the ACC title. And I believe they're going to sneak into the playoffs again and possibly pull one off this time. Clemson hit the transfer portal for the first time in like forever. So I think Clemson could make a run, but it's really going to depend on that week 1 matchup, which I'll get into later. Number 7, I have Notre Dame, losing a lot of key guys. To me, Notre Dame, they were a Cinderella story last year, making it to the national championship. It's hard to ignore that I think it was Northern Illinois that they lost to, and a terrible football team that they dropped one to. But they still made it to the national title game, and they still have some guys returning. But heading into that playoff, they were sitting at that number 4 or 5 ranked team nationally, and then they ended up making it there. I think they're going to be right around that 7 spot to start the season this year. Number 8, South Carolina. South Carolina, they had a really good end of the season last year. They got blown out in their bowl game, but they had a lot of guys sit out. They're losing a lot of guys. South Carolina is a team, very good coach. I think they're going to start at number 8 this year. You're really going to be able to tell which direction they're going to head towards early on in this season. A lot of key matchups early on. And you're going to be able to tell right away if this is going to be a top 10 team that can compete, or this is going to be a 20th to 25th ranked team that's just going to hang around that spot throughout the entire year. Then number 9, I got LSU. LSU I have here because they have guys. You have your quarterback returning, who was a Heisman finalist the year before. But I really think that the media wants to see a top 10 matchup week 1 between Clemson and LSU. Hence why I had them at number 9 and number 6. And this is going to be a big part in the season, because whoever wins that game, that's going to be a resume booster right off the bat, and you're probably going to be just about in the top 5 right after week 1. The loser's going to drop probably to number 15 or lower, depending on how close the score is. This week 1 matchup, especially as a Clemson fan, it's going to be a very big matchup week 1 of the season. I'll get more into that later. But then at number 10, I do have Alabama sitting there, and that's mainly just because of their name. I don't think that they're going to start the season outside the top 10 just because of how big the brand of Alabama is. And the AP poll is just going to see that name and be like, oh, yeah, we need them in the top 10. So I don't know how their season's going to go. They lost a few guys, but it's still Alabama. They're still going to get their 5-star recruits. They're going to be ranked year in and year out for at least a while yet. Then just outside my top 10, I got BYU, Iowa State, and Arizona State. All teams that are from the Big 12 that can be competitive, but you never know with them. So now I'm going to rank these teams in tiers. These tiers are ones that, they could be titled better, but I got the teams to beat. I have 3 teams there. I have other teams that can make a run for the national championship. And then I have a tier need a flawless season. So to me, the teams to beat are the pretty obvious ones. I got Ohio State. Got to defend their title. Ohio State with all the players they have returning. I have Texas. And then I have Penn State. Those 3 teams to me are the teams to beat in college football at this moment before the season starts. Obviously, injuries happen, and stuff is going to get chaotic throughout the college football season. But those 3 teams before the season starts, if you ask me who are the teams to beat in all of college football, those are the 3 teams in my opinion. Teams that can make a run to the national championship. I have Clemson/LSU because I believe whoever wins that game, you're almost like, if you just take care of business the rest of the season, you can afford to lose a game or 2 and still be in contention. Look at the way the season panned out. Clemson were the only 3-loss team to make it, as because they won their conference. But then you had a bunch of 2-loss teams that made it as an at-large bid. And then you even had a team like Alabama, which was right outside of it with 3 losses. So I really think whoever wins that Clemson-LSU game is going to have a huge resume booster right off the bat. And you can afford to lose a game or 2 and still have that on your resume to where it's going to be hard to bump you outside of that top 12 and making the playoff. So I have Clemson/LSU because whoever wins that game is going to have a chance to make a run at the national title. Then I have Georgia. Then I have Notre Dame. Then I have Alabama. All 3 of those teams, we got 2 SEC teams that anything can happen in the SEC. If you're in the top 5, you have a chance to compete for the title. And then SEC is just valued so much that if you can win a few games in the SEC, you have a chance to be an at-large team and make a shot at running the table in the playoff. Then a team like Notre Dame, who year in and year out, they typically put together an easy schedule. I know they do try to schedule a few. Usually, it's a few like ACC teams, but they don't pick the Alabamas. They don't pick the Georgias. They usually play Clemson. like maybe every few years they play them. But a team like Notre Dame, they usually have one or two big games on their schedule. Then it's a cakewalk. So I have Notre Dame sneaking in there as an at-large, but again, probably with like one loss. They have a chance to make a run at the national championship. Then need a flawless season. Like I said, South Carolina is it's going to be hard to tell which direction they go because they're losing guys on that defense side of the ball, but they have a great coach. As a Clemson fan, it hurts to say they have a great coach. And I think towards the end of the year also, it could be another play-in game between South Carolina and Clemson. Towards the end of the year, could be playing for a playoff spot. And then also Oregon. Oregon, like I said, I'm not very high on them this year. They had a great season last year going 13-0, then getting their doors blown off in the playoff. But I think South Carolina and Oregon are the only two teams that I believe could have a flawless season and make a run at the title. Then Clemson, LSU, Georgia, Notre Dame, and Alabama all have a shot to make a run based on their schedule and where I think they're going to end up. And then the teams to beat sitting at the top, Ohio State, Penn State, and Texas. So let's talk a little about this college football playoff format. I personally like the format, but I would change something about it. I like the 12 teams. I like the 4 first-round buys. I like the 5 automatic bids. And I like the 7 next best team bids. The only thing that I have a problem with is I don't think the first 4, like the buys, should be conference winners. I think you can still earn a first-round buy without winning your conference. Because if you look at like the SEC, the ACC, and the Big Ten, it's possible you could have one loss in your conference. You slip up one game, you end up losing, and then you're sitting there with one loss in your conference, but you didn't make the conference championship. But you still had a season where you went 12-1, and your one loss might been against Ohio State or Penn State or an Alabama or Georgia, but you didn't make the conference championship. I still think you might be one of the best teams, so you still deserve to get that top 4 bid spot if you put together a good resume and only have that one loss without a conference championship. So to me, I don't think Arizona State deserved a first-round bye. Boise State did not deserve a first-round bye. I'm okay with Oregon and Georgia getting that first-round bye, but I really think what the committee has to do is, all right, you got your 5 best conference championship winners. Those are your automatic bids. Take them out of the equation. Look at the next, let's just say you have between 12 and 15 teams that have an argument for being in that top 7. Rank those teams then. As a committee, rank those teams based off resume, eye test, a little bit of their conference they play in, their common opponents. Rank them off of that, and whoever your 7 best teams are, that's who gets in the playoffs. Now, take those 12 teams, your 5 automatic bid winners and your 7 at-large bids. Put those 12 together and rank them 1 through 12, and those are your seeds. What do you think about it that way rather than 4 of the 5 automatic bids are going to first-round bye? To me, the college football, the show is going to be way more interesting. Seeing who's 1 and 2 will probably be like the biggest, all right, yeah, we expect those to be in there. Then you might not expect 3, you might not expect 4, and your team will get so hyped if you actually realize, oh my God, I thought we were going to be 5, 6, or 7, but we got that 4 spot. Now we don't got to play a game until 3-4 weeks from now. So to me, I'm okay with the 12-team playoff. I know some people want to expand it. I do not want a 16-team playoff. That one is just going to be, there's no bye weeks. You're playing extra games. I understand, realistically, probably 12 through 16 are never going to really win a championship. You might get lucky and win 1 game, but the odds of winning 2 as a 16 seed is slim to none. But I would be okay with the 14-team playoff, because at least you still get the top 2 will get a first-round bye. The top 2 get a first-round bye, then everything will fall in 3 versus 14, 4 versus 13, 5 versus 12, and so on and so forth. But at least you can still watch it and see if your team gets a first-round bye. In that aspect, I would be okay if it would be something like 2 conference championship winners would get that first-round bye, because in that case, you can do a Big Ten winner and an SEC winner as the top 2 bids or anything along those lines. So that I'm okay with a 14-team playoff with 2 first-round buys, still 5 automatic bids from the conference champions, and then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. 14-team playoff, 2 first-round buys, still 5 automatic bids from the conference champions, and then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid teams. And then you're going from 7 to 9 best bid But to me, 16 teams is too much. I think it's unnecessary. Nobody gets a first round bye. And to me, I think you can earn that first round bye because not everybody wants to play that many games, especially in college football when you're trying to get ready to go to the NFL. No one wants to play all those extra games. So at least if your team is that much better, you probably have more NFL players on your team than other teams do. So at least give them that extra bye, make them not play that extra game. I really like the 12-team playoff format. I just wish they would not have the 5 bids getting for the first round buys. I think they should do 5 automatic bids, 7 best bid teams, keep it at 12-team format, and then just reseed them. Once they figure out their 12 teams, reseed them after that. But I'm just doing a podcast. I am not an actual analyst, so I have no say in that format. Let's go to the last topic. Topic number 4. We have the best bets segment, my favorite segment. And I'm going to give there's going to be a lot of bets here. Since we're on the college football talk right now, I want to give my ACC champ, my favorite, my long shot. Everyone knows I love doing a favorite and a long shot. I want to give my SEC champ, my Big 10 champ, my Big 12 champ, and then who I think you should put some money on for the national championship. A couple of these teams I already talked about, but there's a couple of teams on here I did not talk about. First off, the ACC. Obviously, I love Clemson at plus 250. I had them ranked in the top 10. I think if they can win against LSU week 1, they're going to set themselves up in the long run to be a national championship contender. So Clemson Tigers at plus 250. I'm taking that plus money in the ACC. I think it's going to be weaker next year than it even was this year. I think Miami's going to get worse. I think SMU is not going to play as well as they did. I think that the ACC is going to go downhill, but Clemson's going to be the leader once again. So I like plus 250. A long shot. I was looking at their schedule. They have a pretty easy schedule. They do play Clemson. Other than that, I think they can win with him as their coach. I think they can win multiple games. I like North Carolina sitting at plus 2,000. If somehow they can make it into the championship game against Clemson, and it can be a North Carolina versus Clemson, I like my odds at plus 2,000. Obviously, I'm going to take the Tigers. But if I'm sprinkling some money on it, North Carolina has a pretty easy schedule this year. So I can see them running the table, having a 10-2 type of season, 9-3 type of season, and squeaking in there and playing a team like Clemson in the ACC title game. So North Carolina plus 2,000 is my long shot for the ACC. Let's go to the SEC. SEC, my favorite is Texas. Texas sitting at plus 210. I think they're going to have a really stacked roster. I know they lost some guys, but they continue to bring in their 5-star recruits day in and day out. So plus 210, I really do like Texas. My long shot is LSU. LSU sitting at plus 1,000. I think they can make some noise this year. Another great roster. And like I said, I keep talking about Clemson and LSU playing week 1. I think it's going to be a huge game. Obviously, it doesn't count towards your SEC record, but I do like LSU making some noise at plus 1,000. I like the value there. Big 10 champ. Big 10 champ. I do like Penn State sitting at plus 380. Ohio State, to me, is going to be tricky because I think they're going to have so much confidence, but I think they're going to be so comfortable. I think that Ryan Day finally got his national title that he's been chasing. And I really think that sitting at plus 380, Penn State could sneak up on a team like Ohio State, and then you got other guys in that team that, all right, we've been there, we've done that. This is easy. And I think Penn State can sneak up on them because they're going to be a hungrier team than what Ohio State is. So Penn State at plus 380. I like the odds. I'll sprinkle something on that one. Then Big 10 champ, long shot. This one I had a tough time with. I was going through a number of teams. Some teams I wasn't really considering a long shot that I would also put money on. Team that I saw that they had an up and down season last year. If they can figure some things out, they could put together a decent season in the Big 10. Plus 4,500, give me USC. USC sitting at plus 4,500. $100 on that would win you $4,500. I don't know if I'm putting that much money on it because I don't have that much faith in them. But if I had to bet on a long shot, anyone that's pretty much above 1,500 or higher, I would really like to sprinkle something at least on USC because I think they have the best chance of all the teams that are down there in the Big Ten. But I really think it's going to be a race between Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. But really, I think Penn State's going to be the team to come out on top. Then Big 12. Big 12, a lot of teams are plus 500 or lower. It's not like they have a clear champion in the Big 12 like the other conferences like the ACC, SEC, and Big 10. This conference is up for grabs. And a team that I really like that made some noise towards the end of the year, and they lost a lot of one-score games last year. Give me Kansas at plus 750. If they can make a run in the Big 12, then they have an automatic bid to the college football playoff. So Kansas, I think, is a team that could – they're really sitting – I think there might be third in their conference for odds, but I like them as a favorite at plus 750. Then a long shot, it's not a super long shot because everyone's odds are kind of low in that. Like, I mean, they're kind of high, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But long shot I like is Iowa State at plus 1,200. Iowa State obviously made a run. At a point, they were favorites to win the Big 12 last year, and they kind of blew up towards the end of the year. I think they're going to have another solid run again this year, and I like their odds at plus 1,200. And then last but not least, the national champion, favorite / long shot. My favorite, I would like to take Texas sitting at plus 650. Texas, I think, is going to win the SEC this year. I've been saying the whole time they have a really solid roster coming back. And I'm a huge fan of Arch Manning. I think he's going to be great for Texas, and I think he's going to be a top 3 draft pick when it comes to him going to the draft. So Texas at plus 650, I really like. I think they are second in odds. I think only Ohio State is higher than them. But yeah, Texas at plus 650, they're my favorite to win it. I'll be sprinkling something on that. Then my long shot. Talked about them all day as well. I have LSU / Clemson. Like I said, the winner of that week 1 game is going to have a huge resume boost. And I would sprinkle something on each of them because whoever wins that game, their odds are going to fly down because they're going to have that top 10 win already on their resume. LSU currently sitting at plus 2,000 to win the national championship. Clemson sitting at plus 1,800. $100 on LSU wins you $2,000. $100 on Clemson wins you $1,800. Winning that game is going to be a huge advantage throughout the rest of the season. No matter what happens, they can afford to lose a game or two and still have that top 10 win to support their resume. That's all I have for episode number 2. It ran a little bit longer than what I expected. I like to keep them around 30, 35 minutes, but sometimes you're just going to go longer. You just got a lot of stuff to talk about, We're going to have a couple segments that we're going to continue to do throughout every single podcast episode. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. Please hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate everyone that does subscribe and has already subscribed. And leave a like on the video and leave a comment as well. Drop your favorite team. If you want me to talk about them, drop that in the comments. So as always, appreciate you guys. Peace out.